Hey, how are you? Hey, good morning, everyone. Hey, oh, you can hear me. All right, this is working. All right, thank you for coming out. First and foremost, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. So it's great to see so many great friendly faces too. So we're very excited about having this conversation today. Governor's been having this across the state, so it is really important to me to be able to have that here, right here where I represent Stafford County. So thank you so much. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome our 74th Governor, Glenn Youngkin.
Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Delegate Durant, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to an extremely important conversation. We're going to go to work, so I'm just going to kind of take off jacket. I can give that to somebody. Thank you. We're going to have a really important discussion today about parents and children and schools, and we want to hear from you. That's why we're here. And I will share some thoughts, and Delegate Durant will share some thoughts, but I just want to warm everybody up that these discussions, which this is now our fourth that we've had across the Commonwealth, is an opportunity really for us to get out of Richmond and come hear from you. But what I'd love to do before we get started is start a way I start a lot of days. And I would ask a friend of mine, Pastor Ron Willis, if he would start us in a prayer, if that's okay with everybody. So, Pastor, over to you.
God, I ask everybody to bow their head. Most gracious Father, we thank you for this day that was not promised to any of us, but you saw fit to allow us to be in this place. Lord, we thank you for the conversation that is about to occur, and we thank you for our governor, and thank you for our city officials and county officials. Thank you for my friend, Tara Durant, for putting all this together. Now, God, as you speak, we listen. Bring us to a place of unity. Bring us to a place that we care for one another. Thank you for our county, thank you for our state, but most of all, thank you for our country. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Pastor Willis, thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to do just a bit of table setting, if I can. First of all, where are we? We're at the Falmouth Volunteer Fire Department, and I want to thank you all for your incredible service to this community and to open up this space for us to have this discussion. But it really does reflect the fact that it is all about community, and it is all about service. And the volunteer fire departments across the Commonwealth of Virginia are heroes. And they partner, of course, with full-time fire departments, and together they keep us safe. And so first, I just want to call out Ronnie Newton, who's the president here of the Falmouth Volunteer Fire Department. Ronnie, where are you? There he is back here. Thank you, Ronnie. I also want to thank, Joseph Cardello, who is the fire chief of Stafford Fire and Rescue. Thank you, sir. Bless you. Listen, we got to thank our sheriff Decatur. Sheriff, where are you? Here you are, right here. Bless you. Thank you. Great to see you again. I've been here before, if you didn't know that, a number of times, and I just want to thank everybody for the warm reception, but also for the incredible service that you provide to Stafford County. It is just so critical. As I said, we've had 4 of these discussions, and each one of them has had its unique character, but also a lot of common themes. And what I'll do at the end is draw in some of those common themes, but also I'm sure there's some specific issues here in Stafford County and the greater area that are on your minds. Listen, at the end of the day, this is about our kids. This is about the role of parents. This is about making sure that we have high expectations for our children. And what we do know is that children will meet the expectations that are set for them, and if the expectations are set low, then our children will not perform to the full extent of their God-given capabilities. And what happened in the Commonwealth of Virginia over previous years was expectations were systematically lowered. And what does that mean when I say standards were lowered? Literally, the number of questions on our standards of learning tests that had to be right in order to be proficient was reduced. That's the truth. And what that meant is that Virginia went from being one of the best states in America for having high expectations to being one of the worst. And even the Washington Post said, what is Virginia doing when this happened? Yeah. So I want us to talk about expectations for our kids in a moment where I firmly believe that we can raise the ceiling and we can raise the floor, because all children are capable of doing extraordinary work. The second topic that I want us to talk about is, the catastrophic circumstances of the mental health crisis that's going on, not just with our children, but across all of Virginia and the country, but particularly with regards to our kids. And that issue is one that impacts everyone. We know this. Doesn't matter where you live, where you came from, how much money you make, what party you vote for. The mental health crisis is real. And we're seeing it really manifest itself in our children in such a challenging way. We're also going to grab the influence of social media for a while in that topic. And I firmly believe that one of the big challenges in our children's lives, particularly as it reflects their mental health, is the role of social media. And I'm going to ask us how we feel about that and what you're doing in order to be engaged in that part of your children's lives. And then finally, I want us to talk a little bit about pathways for kids and how you as parents feel empowered to have a say about the educational pathway for your child. And we'll talk about lab school initiatives and tax-driven scholarship funds, but truly your ability to work with your children in order to determine their educational pathway. I kind of believe that there's a reality that the current one-size-fits-all approach to education is actually one-size-fits-none. And we need to make sure that we are providing multiple pathways. So that's the discussion that I'd like for us to have. But I do need to just stop for a minute. Back to my comments around community and safety. One of the realities is that we have to come together and continue to reinforce the safety of a community. And firefighters, fire department, our first responders, oftentimes when they're not in the front lines, are sometimes in the back of our minds. And we need to keep them in the front of our minds. And one of the things that I was so proud of, Delegate Durant, was a bill that was passed on a deep bipartisan basis, and I was thrilled to sign, that extended health coverage to our firefighters for more unfortunate illnesses that tend to impact firefighters more than other folks. This is critically important to take care of our firefighters and their families as they not only are actively keeping us safe, but also in the next chapters of their lives. Second of all, we know that we are having a drug crisis in Virginia and America. Fentanyl is killing, on average, millions a day. 5 yesterday on average, 5 today, and 5 tomorrow. And this is just horrific. One of my recent trips to Stafford, we were together at Stafford High School, and we had a chance to speak with students about fentanyl. And we had parents who had lost a child share the horrific reality of this trauma in their lives. We had health experts talk about the deadliness of fentanyl. Just to be clear, In the last 8 months, our Operation Bold Blue Line has seized 47 pounds of illegal fentanyl. That's enough to poison every Virginian multiple times over. This is in the system. And then finally, we had experts speak to the high school students about how fentanyl was going to present itself if they vape, if they ask a friend for even an Advil, if they sadly are a drug user. What we found through this whole process was so many students had no idea. And this is why we must work together to educate. The delegate and I, at least I had done it before, but I know, and you might have as well, went through training so that we could revive someone who was suffering from a fentanyl overdose. This is hugely important. And finally, one of the efforts that Delegate Durant has been a leader on is standing up for school resource officers, their funding and their training in all of our schools. And this is hugely important to make sure that this capability of having law enforcement present every day, integrated into the school system, is something that each school has access to, and in my view, a requirement to have. And so thank you for your leadership there.
Thank you.
Now, let me pivot. Let me pivot to the discussion of the day. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to work us through those 4 topics I discussed. I know Delegate Durant has views on these, and so we're going to have a short conversation at the beginning of each one, and then I'm going to ask you all the questions that I'd love to hear back from you. We have friends here who will move around microphones, and I'll do my best to hear from all of you. We'll be around afterwards because my experience is that everybody has great comments to contribute, and we don't get to everybody, and I want to apologize up front for that. But we will hear from folks. Much of this is us asking you questions. I'll be taking notes, and I need to make one comment. I gave my jacket away, so my pen went away with my jacket. Can I?
There we go.
Bless you.
Thank you.
When my head is down, it's not because I'm not listening. But what I find is that in the evenings when I reflect on the day, I will have jotted down some notes that really do inform actions. And so forgive me when my head's down. I'm listening intently. But I'll be taking notes. I know that the delegate will be adding some comments, and we'll move through the discussions. Many of the things we will ask, we're looking for your views and perspectives and comments on, and we'll do our best if there's a question to answer it. But oftentimes, my experience has been in these discussions that it's your experience and views that inform us to go take further action. But we'll also, if there's something you're concerned about, we'll do our best to answer it. And then let me just make one other just personal reflection. So my amazing wife, Suzanne, and I have 4 kids. And our youngest one is just heading off to college. And we have routinely been called the worst parents in the world. You're the meanest parents in the world. We believe that our job is to be parents, not friends. Doesn't mean that we don't support our children in so many things that they do. But I actually wear it as a badge of honor that I am in the category of meanest parents in the world. And I think that's been one of the things as we have been on this journey that all of you have been on as well as parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and oftentimes neighbors and friends of kids in your neighborhood. I think that there's a combination that comes with parents' rights, because parents matter, and parents' responsibilities. Mm-hmm. Because with rights come responsibilities. With the rights of being in the greatest country ever formed are the responsibilities of being an active citizen. And with the rights that come with being a parent and the privilege that comes with being a parent comes the responsibility of being a parent as well. And so we'll talk about that a little bit, I'm sure, over the course of today. I mean, let's be clear. This isn't a political moment. It's a Parents Matter moment. And what I've found is that it's not Republicans versus Democrats. It's not rural versus urban. It's not a racial issue. It's not a religious issue. This is about the rights of parents to not just be at the table, but to be at the head of the table in their children's lives. And ultimately, yes, to work with a team, teachers who are extraordinary. Do we have any teachers here today?
Former.
Thank you. Former teachers? Perfect. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you do in loving kids. Teachers and administrators and everybody else that's around that table with our children. Parents have to be at the head of that table. And they have to be the one that have the ultimate decision rights with regards to their children. Children belong to parents, not to the state. Not to the state. So, let's get started.
Yes.
So Delegate Durant, parents, you are a parent.
I
You
am.
have 3 children.
I do.
And you are now in the throes of an adult child who's working as a teacher, a college student,
Yeah.
and you have a high schooler.
I do.
And so parents matter. And you have been an ardent defender, an advocate, defender of, an advocate for parents' rights. Before we move to questions, I'd love to just hear how that has impacted you, your role as a parent and your role as a trusted elected public servant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that's true. This is where we've raised our family. We have 3 kids now, and I think when you say parents are at the head of the table, that's really what this is about. This is a team. Whether it's the teacher or it's a counselor you're working with, there's your child's doctor, there's a whole lot of people that come into how we're raising these children up, but we're at the head of the table. And when we started in with the Parents Matter, I think at that time I was still a teacher, and coming in fresh from COVID, I think that's when we were coming in from a different perspective in terms of having a new enlightened view of what's happening with what our children are learning, and getting a lot more in tune to seeing what is it happening in our schools, and wanted to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah.
And as we move forward now, I think where we are now this is really important to emphasize that we're coming together with this. Now as a former teacher, I'm working with you together to get this kid to the next where we're headed, and this is a partnership together. So, now that I'm in a new role here in Richmond, this is first and foremost in my mind as I come through, and there are a lot of different layers I think that have come in from a legislative standpoint of how this is taken a lead and what I've done, and especially when we talk about the learning loss and really exposing that honesty gap between what we thought as parents, how our kids were, where were they in their achievement. If you thought your child was, maybe at this certain level, then that's true for Virginia. But then we actually peeled back the layers a couple of years ago, and what we now know is that's not the same as where we are in terms of the rest of the country. Those scores that you were getting back from your kids might have been pretty darn good, but compare that to the rest of the country, and we saw that was not the truth at all. And that was heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking to hear, because we've always been leaders in education in Virginia. This is who we are. So that's really important for you, for all of us that are still fighting for it, is we maintain that leadership. And so we have the Virginia Literacy Act. We've really been tackling that. I'm really proud that that's been passed last year, and then we expanded it now, and we're continue to, build up those steps. Personally, I really am really concerned, and I care a lot about what we're seeing, particularly with math.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of conversations with that, because math is so cumulative, and if you've got strands in a curriculum for a child that's just not getting it, then it just snowballs badly. And I'm right there. My youngest, she was in 5th grade when we first had COVID, and then by the time 7th grade came, then we really hit a wall, and we started to see it. And having 3 kids, they're all at different levels of achievement and where they are academically and their interests, what they majored in. They're all over. So we have to meet kids where they are. And so when I started to work on the math bill last year, this is because I saw it not only as a teacher and we know when we were in the classroom, we kind of move as like an assembly line, and it's really hard when you see kids, they just don't get it. They don't know it, and you talk to parents, and they're doing their best, but often it becomes kind of a mystery between we know this kid's not doing well, and maybe they've got some resources to dig in to get some extra help somewhere. Maybe they don't, and those are the ones I really worry about. So, there's a lot that we're coming through, but we've made such great progress so far, and that is the hope that I know we can continue to do so.
Perfect. Thank you. That's the partnership that exists at the state level. And there's a huge partnership that exists at the local level, and I want to thank you. I know that Paul Milday is here, who's running to be a delegate. Hello, Paul. Thank you for running. And we have members of the Stafford County Board of Supervisors and School Board here. Would you just raise your hand, folks that are here? So thank you for being here. Thank you for your service and your leadership. Let's talk about learning loss and academic standards and the moment that we're in. So get ready. I watched the systematic lowering of standards in Virginia, and I watched the expectations get watered down for our kids. And then what we saw, of course, was that the state exam showed that the kids were doing fine. But when you coupled that with the national exams, the national report card, what we saw was a widening gap.
Yeah.
Where, in fact, children in Virginia were being told, and their families, they're doing fine, they're proficient. But in fact, relative to national standards, we were declining. And that gap was widening, and as you called it, it's the honesty gap. We weren't being truthful. And so we've gone to work right away in order to try to reestablish high expectations. There's a rolling series of doing this in state government, where we also we work with all the local school boards. But the proficiency standards are set by the state, and we are slowly working through those as dictated by code. History standards, math standards, English standards. The reality is it takes about 7 years to get through them all. I have the great privilege of working for you for 4, which means we're in a hurry to get this right and reestablish high expectations for our kids. We come to the recognition that we have had a massive learning loss. And in fact, as Delegate Durant said, all the test scores show us that Virginia kids had the largest learning loss in the nation in 4th grade, particularly in math and in reading, the largest in the nation. So my question to all of you is, starting with this topic of what are you seeing with regard to expectations for your children? What observations might you share with us? What do you think we should do about it? All right, we got somebody here first. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Governor Youngkin. How are you? Delegate Duran. I actually wanted to ask a question about the social media and the mental health issues that we see with children.
Perfect. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
So I will come back to you first.
It's on.
On social media.
Okay.
It is absolutely. I'm just going to stick here on expectations first and go here. Perfect. Thank you. We'll come back. Don't worry. I'm not going to miss you.
I hope this is on. There it is. I'm Maureen. I have 4 children as well. I have a high schooler, a middle schooler, an elementary schooler, and a preschooler.
All right, you're in a great state. You get it all.
They all learn differently. And I hear Richmond talking about, setting the standards, and you're setting a finish line for children who are all starting somewhere different. Yeah. So you have a kid that only needs to take 1 step to cross that finish line, and you've got kids that can run all year and never make it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that kid's running all year is probably learning more than the kid who only has to take 1 step, but we're calling them both proficient, and maybe not. So I think that we need to be looking at growth, and that all of these children need to continue to make progress rather than waiting to the end of the year and just crossing the finish line.
Great. Thank you. That's a really, really great comment. Let me do this. If we've got somebody else, and then I will bundle up and offer a few thoughts. Anybody else? Good. Oh, thank you.
My name's Georgie. I'm
Georgie.
mother and parent of 3 kiddos in school right now. They're high school, middle, and elementary school. My husband and I are both first responders in the area, so we understand the constraints of civil service beyond all measure. Though our experience with school currently is that the middle school model is heavily underserved. We are losing kids from going from elementary to middle school, and in our experience, our son got into a really, really dark place. He is a high achieving. His joy, his passion is school. He loves school. He is in the 95th percentile in IQ, though when he has to adhere to a standard of learning, it causes him to be in a very dark place, and everything we've experienced hit on actually all 3 of the things that you had talked about. He was not able to show his abilities, and in fact, I wanted to share a couple words with you that he wrote when he was going through that, that when he went into middle school, it was the first time he disliked school in his life. He felt joy, loss, and very depressed through little joy and very confused. He felt hopeless, said that he wasn't learning anything, that middle school was just a placeholder between elementary and high school, and a system in which I had no freedom of choice or what I do. With that turning to fairly a dark place, he Googling his feelings led to a very dangerous social media platform, and we got into a really scary spot as parents. So that expectation of us and himself was not able to be achieved because he felt that he was always adhering to a standard that he wasn't able to fit in. Now he's actually in governor's school and excelling and doing fantastic, and has a much heavier plate than I could have ever imagined. However, getting him there through middle school was very dangerous for us.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let me make just a couple comments and share a few thoughts. So the idea of growth is, I think, hugely important. And one of the questions that parents have is, how is my child doing?
Yeah.
Really? And what information can I have to better understand how my child is doing as a starting point? So one of the big initiatives at the start of our administration was to make all of the information that is captured about your child, test scores, et cetera, available to you, and to provide a basic framework for understanding where your child is, number one, and then to use that as an information tool to make this most important parent-teacher interaction more productive. So that was a big initiative, and in fact, there was a bill that was passed, that started in our House, so thank you, that in fact codified that approach, which was really important. We have to know where our children are in order to plan where they need to go. Second of all, we know that children learn differently. And so again, back to my earlier comment about one size fits none, we recognize that we have to have different tools in the toolkit for different children. And again, that should be a discussion that parents are well informed to have because all the information is available. And what kind of achievement should we be expecting this year? And how does that reflect on the kinds of outside support and inside support that might be available to a child? Thirdly, we know for sure that there are schools in Virginia that have habitually underperformed. And I don't blame teachers, I blame the system. And we are undertaking a massive overhaul about how we address parentally underperforming school districts and provide the support necessary, as I said, to raise the ceiling and the floor. And so that approach is one that I think speaks to each child, because we need to meet a child where they are, but also recognizes that there have just been system failures that we have to address. One last comment, which is this journey of empowering parents and providing transparency and providing resource and a pathway for growth is critical. I will share that at some point we do have to test, and we need to make sure that children are learning the key things that they should know. And let me give you 2 comments around this. The Literacy Act,
Right.
which Delegate Durant mentioned, was a recognition that if every child can't read at a proficient level by 3rd grade, that they in fact will be behind, and it may be almost impossible for them to catch up. And so the Literacy Act was a complete overhaul of the way we teach reading in Virginia. And it's now comprehensive, K through 3rd, standardized teaching reading, the science of reading, and at the bottom of it is an understanding that every Virginia child, no matter where they come from, must be able to read. Delegate Durant and I share the exact same view on math. And so get ready, because this is something we believe math needs to
Yeah.
take hold of as well. We started with math this past year with specific resources to students who are behind in math, see if we can help them catch up. But there needs to be an overhaul of how we're thinking about teaching math. At the end of the day, if we end up with Virginia kids who learn at their own pace but are stretched, and Delegate Durant was a big advocate for the Virginia Literacy Act. She then pushed to have it extended beyond 3rd grade to 5th grade and now into middle school. Mm-hmm. And this is just such an important part of what we're doing. Let me pivot here for a minute, and I'm going to go to the issues that you shared with us of what happens when you get into a moment in school and you're not able to fully engage in a positive way. Let me be clear. The learning loss that we are seeing is predominantly presenting itself in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is where we're seeing it most predominantly present itself. Why? Because putting a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old in front of a 12-inch screen and telling them to be still and do their work for an extended period of time was a horrific challenge that every teacher I know came up with every innovative way you could in order to try to embrace that moment. But the fact that schools were unnecessarily closed for an extended period of time extended that entire circumstance, and the physical presence of a student and a teacher together in a classroom is now shown study after study after study after study to be the most important ingredient into a student's ability to learn when coupled with an engaged parent. So we have now seen this moment where students feel behind, they feel like they're not learning, they feel challenged. On top of that, we see the influence of social media. Thank you for sharing that. And finally, we see a spike in self-harm reports, literally a doubling of self-harm in teenagers. We know that an extraordinary number of kids across the Commonwealth of Virginia, 80% are deeply engaged with social media every day. 25% say that they're 24/7. Think through that. They're sleeping with their phones on. We've got a real challenge. I believe that we need to put restrictions on social media companies' ability to harvest, gather, and sell the data of our children. Right now, the way that the consumer protection laws are written is it's 13 and under. We introduced a bill to extend that up to 18, to under 18, and the other side didn't want to do that. They felt that they were going to side with social media companies over families. Again, that's not a political statement, that's a parent statement. And so we've got, in my view, a real issue. And so let's have a discussion around the mental health of our kids and the role of social media and where you want to take this. But let me just go back to Delegate Durant here for a moment. Mm-hmm. You have a 15-year-old.
I do.
And you've raised a college student and an adult through this phase.
Yeah.
How do you handle this in your family?
I would say we probably share the title of World's Meanest Parents as well, because we don't allow it. Our 15-year-old doesn't have it. Now, she doesn't bubble us on that, so it's something that, I think that's, if you're not on the same page with your child about that and they're I'm very sensitive to the peer pressures. That's going to be tough. But, I'm grateful for that part that we've got, our family, we've got an open dialogue and we've had some frank discussions about what can happen. But that's not to say that that hasn't been a challenge for, the older one, the one who's now an adult, that was just emerging when she was of that age in middle school. And, those were, navigating those waters was really tough even back then. So, they were new, they were emerging, and we just didn't know the dangers, I think, early on, as we know more information now and what can happen to these kids. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, to hear your story, I wish was unique. It's not. I think it strikes, no matter what the demographic is, it certainly touched our family too. So I'm so glad your son is doing better now and was able to get, clearly you're great parents. And so fortunate for that. But this is how we're tackling it right now is we don't have it. Our child she doesn't have any of them, but she's agreed with this too. So
So you've discussed it. You've had a grown-up discussion around the role of social media in your daughter's life.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so and I'm going to go back to my friend who was brave enough to start us, and we're going to...
It's coming. Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you very much. So, the issue with social media that we see, not only the depression and anxiety that it can bring about, but also the ease of access to drugs that it can give children. We as parents are wondering about that same battle. Do we potentially ostracize our child from their friends by being those mean parents that eliminate social media for them? But what we feel like is that these social media platforms are working against us with algorithms that promote content for them that are neither safe nor family friendly. And so it's kind of a losing battle for us if we choose to allow them to have it. What can be done to tackle that?
Yeah, great. So I'll start. I will again be a huge, loud proponent, advocate, demander for a bill that protects our children from social media companies. And the way we have to start is that their data is not allowed to be collected. It's not allowed to be sold. I mean, think about it. For a 14-year-old to have his or her data collected, where they are, what they're doing, and packaged and sold, and then they're to be hit with particular advertising for something that unfortunately is going to particularly appeal to them because they've run an algorithm, that is wrong. And we're going to work in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I know there's efforts at the federal level in order to stop that practice. I think parents should have to give express authority for a minor to be on a particular social media site. That's up to parents. They have to give express authority. Side note, we did get a bill passed that did say express authority must be gained from a parent for a pornography account, and that one we were able to get passed through bipartisan support. That is stunning, because how in the world would you not have a parent enrolled here? I have to say, one of the results of that was that the largest pornography site withdrew totally from being in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Totally. Gone. So this is a moment for us to step up and again empower parents to be engaged in their children's lives, and to recognize that oftentimes our kids think there are things they know everything about and are good for them, and that's the time for a parent to be most engaged. And so we're continue to work in order to get that bill in the Senate, and I want to get it passed in the Senate next time and on my desk so I can sign it so that we can empower parents to make sure that they are deeply engaged with the role of social.
First, thank you very much for coming to our area and for actually getting in the public service arena. Your success has rightly been based on the core issues of humanity, which is parents and kids. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to ask you to please indulge me a moment. I'm here on behalf of a number of people, and I don't want anybody to be upset with me for not bringing things to your attention. We are challenged in this area now with the potential for a methadone clinic in our backyard. There is a correlation between the existence of such a clinic and learning. There's data out there that shows that children that are exposed to crime learn at a lower rate. My name is Lisa Kutza. I've been a 27-year resident of this community. I have no political agenda. My kids are 30, 28, and I'm here because of my compass. I understand that addiction is a national crisis. Our community understands that. We are absolutely sympathetic and want to support people on the journey to recovery, but there's a right and a wrong place for such treatment facilities to occur. I do understand the legislative process. I know that it is inherently flawed. This is a very complex topic. It has a lot of multidisciplinary inputs, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't really get all the input and impact that could have been available to make a decision before House Bill 376 and Senate Bill 300 were passed. That being said, I do understand that sometimes unintended consequences happen, and then we have to figure out what to do next. I really want to focus on that, and I think the community, or many of the community, are hoping you can help with that. There are ramifications to our children, to our seniors, to our small businesses. This clinic is located within 5 miles of 7 schools, 2 daycare centers. One shares a parking lot that will share a parking lot if this is given. And I also want to say that not all methadone clinics are created equal. They do have different ethos. There are minimum standards, and then there are quality standards. Those sorts of things should be impacted for the benefit of patient, because I've had people contacting me on behalf of patients saying this isn't safe for them either. So this isn't a NIMBY issue. We're not a golf course community. We are a wildly eclectic, close community that take care of each other. So what I'm really hoping is that you could share with us where the state could partner with the local municipalities. We had procedural issues that weren't followed. I don't understand to date that an impact study was done or any sort of research has been done that could help guide a strategy for the state on this, because I know it's not going away. Heroin addiction circles every 30 to 35 years, and it takes a while to get to the other side of it. So I just hope that your administration has the energy and the moral courage to work with our local representatives to fix this, because we are losing sleep. This should not have been a by right permit. It should have been a conditional use, and the totality of all the stakeholders, including the patients, were underrepresented in the decisions. And we're worried. Our crime rate is already going up, and we're not even there yet.
Gotcha.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. If I can, let me just, Delegate Duran, I'm going to pull you in here because, of course, you represent all these people, and I know you've been deeply engaged here representing them, and so thank you. Just to step back, that our administration has taken is that we need to transform the entire system. The system is not built for this kind of use. It's focused in the wrong places. There's a fundamental transformation need, and we rolled out last year Right Help, Right Now, which is a 3-year transformation with a big step in year 1 on capacity building so folks can get the help when they need it. Building workforce, providing resources into our schools with parental engagement so that we can, in fact, meet children where they are. Virginia historically has been near the bottom of mental health resources and capabilities for our youth. And I just think this is unforgivable, and we need to change this. That is the administration's big effort. We've been talking about Right Help Right Now 7 months, now 8 months, and it's hugely important for us to recognize the challenges that we're in. It's a bill that was passed unanimously, I believe.
Yeah.
And at the heart of the bill was a recognition that different communities have different needs, rural communities, urban communities, et cetera, and the community should make the decision on the placement of these kinds of facilities. However, the state still has a major licensing role in those facilities, and our Department of Behavioral Health and Disability Services still is the place that provides that license. The process of deciding where these go and the framework around it is one that, because of the bill, went to the local board of supervisors. And that's where this discussion should rest. I will tell you that Delegate Durant has been on the phone with me and the Secretary of Health and Human Resources and our Director of the Department of Behavioral Health and Disability Services. She has been actively representing you in this process. And there's a lawsuit that's now been filed, and so there's some stuff I can't comment on. But I want you to know we understand your issue and are fully engaged with you.
Can you help us understand why a half-a-mile radius from a school should have a jurisdictional impact? Whether the schools in Southwest Virginia or Fairfax, a child still has the right to have some circumference of safety around where they go to school every day. And I guess what we're struggling to understand is why there wouldn't be a baseline standard, the same way we're attacking curriculums and things like that. So I understand, and the two examples that were brought up in committee on this were Charlottesville. Well, the land rights there are all very large, so it was kind of a skewed example, and Salem County. So I guess I'm not here to think of
Yeah.
game. We really just want solutions. We're willing to work toward the solutions. We need help. And we're hoping that there can be collaboration between the two levels of government to get it done. Can you help us?
Yeah, there's been deep collaboration. Our disability services are engaged. At the end of the day, the law is the law, and whether it had unintended consequences, we've also got to work with local folks in order to. That's where this decision needs to be taken. So you've got been the ringleader here, which is a super spot for it to be because she's in the community, but also can pull in all the state resources and capabilities. And yeah, so one, I appreciate you raising this issue. It's one that we're fully aware of, and again, I think that within the reality of code now, we've got to embrace the needs of the community and do everything we can to help. So thank you. Yes. Okay. Oh, we're going right here. I just go where the microphone is.
So
Yeah, we've got a microphone back here. Yeah.
So I have a couple of comments. First of all, I homeschool my two boys, and they're right here beside me. I also have a stepdaughter that went through
How are
Stafford
ya?
County Public School. But you're talking about social media, and I don't know if you include YouTube in that, but I think part of the learning loss issue can be coupled with that amount of time that some kids spend watching YouTube over and over and over. I teach at the college level. I'm a math professor. So in general, the fall semester, students struggle more than they do in the spring. I even teach past calculus. I mean, like engineering students, math students, and they have some learning loss over the summer. So, but now I don't know, it's a product of COVID and things being shut down, everything's online now. I don't know if it's a product of that, but I notice a change, and I've been teaching college courses for 22 years, and I see a difference in the last couple of years. And so learning loss plus the amount of time that is spent just consuming. And I know for young children, that's probably, even mine, there's a certain amount of time that you are going to be allowed to spend wasting your time. Well, we all waste our time, let's be honest. But, I'll give you a certain amount of time to waste, but then you've got to stop. And so my suggestion, I mentioned I have a stepdaughter. When she went through Stafford County Public Schools, she got her learner's permit, and then to get her driver's license, parents and the students had to attend a meeting where there were parents of children who had died behind the wheel just to.
Good thing. And so, thank you.
You're 100% right. I have 2 minor scouts too. It's having some of the toolbox to help us get there. When you already got those best practices underneath you to move forward with that. Awareness is so helpful. I agree.
All right. Is there anybody else on things that have helped you get ready for this kind of conversation in your kid's life, or things that intimidate you in having this conversation?
No.
I'd add something if I may. So before my daughter, my 16-year-old, loves the phone, I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, Netflix has this documentary, and it's called The Social Dilemma. And if you haven't seen it, it's worth your time. And it talks about all of the impacts. And I think that would be a great thing in schools as well. Have them sit down and watch watch that and learn all of the things. And a lot of people who are speaking are people who founded some of these companies.
Yes.
And they're talking about, I know, this is why my kids, so these same people who started these companies don't let their own kids.
If you have not seen it, I've seen it, and it is scary. Hugely scary.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just watching our clock, and let me see if I can get to this last quick topic, which is just multiple pathways for kids. Before I go there, on the world of social media and the mental health of our kids, part of the Right Help Right Now plan is to resourcing into schools and to really provide an opportunity for parents and resources to work together for children that are feeling like they need some support and help. It's preventative. It's pre-crisis. It's to open up avenues and discussions. Parents must be engaged, must be. But this is an opportunity for us, I think, to recognize a moment of real challenge and to run at it. Second of all, this world of protecting parents and social media, just hear me. We are going to continue to work to protect and empower. And I don't want that to be missed with anyone. It's hugely important. And then finally, I deeply encourage folks to attend school-driven information sessions, understand best practices. If your church or synagogue or mosque is involved in any way of educating on the challenges of social media, engage, find movies that are helpful, folks. Engaged. Okay, last quick topic. Multiple pathways for kids. One of the things that hopefully you all know from me is that I think you should be engaged in the educational pathway for your children and have choices. One of the things I'm really encouraged by is that we expanded the opportunity for tax-driven scholarships for families that can't afford to go to a non-public school and they have been used at a record level in this past year. It is so important. We also have been strong advocates for the creation of lab schools within the public school system that are schools that cater to special education tracks that are done in collaboration with school divisions and institutions of higher learning, community college and four-year universities. This whole program started September last year, and I have to say it has come roaring out of the box. In Virginia, we've had about 8 charter schools in the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. And put it in context, Maryland has 140, North Carolina has 190. We just have not had these kinds of choices for families. And so we have, just in the first kind of 10 months of work, 20 lab schools in motion, and 2 of them are right here in the greater Stafford area. One in partnership with Germanna, and one in partnership with Mary Washington and the Stafford School District. The one with Germanna is K through 12, focused on learning loss. They had a planning grant, they're planning it, and assuming everything goes according to their expectations, school will be open next year. And the partnership with Mary Washington and Stafford County is a 9 through 12 focused on STEM. and an opportunity to really dig deep in STEM. And again, that's a planning grant that's been awarded, and they're doing the work. We already have one lab school that moved really fast and got open quickly, and Code RVA in combination with VCU is taking students now, which is really, really exciting. There are lab schools across the Commonwealth, some focused on healthcare, some focused on skilled trades in the maritime industry, a space lab school on the Eastern Shore focused on what's happening around Wallops Island, as I said, STEM. But each locality is deciding which lab school focus is most important to drive both furthering academic needs that are there and also the area. So I'm very pleased with that initiative, and it's moved really, really quickly. I'd love to just hear if there's any comments with regards to expressing your desires to have an influence about the path of your children. All right, start right here. I'm sorry, you were next. I'll come get you. Oh, well. Oh.
My name's Juliet Schweider. I have 3 students, 1 just graduated high school and 2 that are seniors in high school. Governor's School Child, great program. Just to encourage you to look at more of these programs, more governor's schools, and earlier, because middle school is brutal. Those kids are awful. And I hate to say it, I have middle school. I'm sorry if you have middle school kids, but it's a really rough time for them. And 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, you're throwing them all in, and we've taken out the differentiation. When my children went, we had an honors 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for English. They've gotten rid of it. So we need more of those things for the middle school kids who are great students. Give them more abilities. We need to differentiate. That will allow children not to get so frustrated. And just as good students struggle because they're like, oh my gosh, did we just do this for the 10th time? Bad. And it's hard, and at that age, we can talk about being nice, but to read, but we need to take it farther. If kids are not reading, and by the way, I also sub in Stafford schools, if kids are not reading in 3rd grade, they can't go on. Yeah. We have to have something like grade 3rd and a half.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you laugh, but something where we just take them all and make sure they are reading. Because I also taught Christian middle school, and if you got a 5th grader, you could look back and say, in 1st grade, wow, you could see that in 1st grade where people said, oh, they should be held back, and they didn't hold them back. They never caught up.
Yeah.
I agree.
Not
So
meeting kids
just
where they are.
really to find a way to, I know No Child Left Behind, but we need to leave people behind and make them learn something, and then they can catch up. Because if we just keep saying, we're going to throw you into a class, and we're going to teach you, we're going to take you out of a class where you're learning and give you work to catch up, then you just miss the class you were behind in. And we do that all the time. It's time to take that away.
That's great. Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. I'm Lori.
Hi, Lori.
And I'm just retired from Stafford County Schools. And just one thing I observed, great schools. I loved it. But one thing I observed was the gifted kids, the kids that are above grade level, you can only have so much time as a teacher to differentiate. So they got the least amount of time and effort from me that I could give them, especially regarding reading. The kids that were struggling got the most because they needed the most. But the kids that could fly, they got the least. So this is an issue that starts to connect to elementary school. We've got to find a way to meet the needs of the kids that are gifted, that just could fly, and make sure that they get the resources that they need as well.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you. Let me just make one quick one real quick. This multiple pathways is at the heart of so much of the work that is going on across the legislative leadership that Delegate Durant is part of, across our administration and the Department of Education, across our community college system. And one of the big initiatives is blur the lines between high school and a career and high school and college. And I have a strong desire for every high school student in Virginia to have the opportunity and eventually the requirement to take dual enrollment so that they would in fact earn a credential that would allow them to go to work right away if they chose to do so. And today, the world of a required degree in order to get a job has really started to fall away. And in fact, even the tech companies want skills. They want cybersecurity analysts that have credentials that stack and don't really care whether you've taken history in college or not. And so there are going to be multiple pathways. I also believe that so many students are capable of doing college level work in high school, and we need to make sure we open up those avenues for them so that their college could take 3 years and not 4 if that's what they choose to do. Bring down the cost. They can get in the workforce faster. Candor, Virginia's work opportunities are growing so fast because our economy is finally moving. And we had 200,000 more Virginians that are working today than just 18 months ago. We went from being near the bottom of job creation to near the top. And we need a workforce. And so the workforce is both people finally moving to Virginia from other states as opposed to moving away. But second of all, we got to prepare this next generation to take these opportunities. And we want to create every avenue for them to get there, whether that's high school and go straight to work with a credential, whether that's an associate's degree, that's stacking credentials in our community college system, or going off and getting a 4-year degree. But I don't think there's one path here, and we have to open up multiple of them. And I think it also allows us to provide different students different pacing, which is just so important as well. Okay, all right, one last one. Here we go. And I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to break us up here.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, which it kind of wraps everything around. My name is Wanda Stroh. I am a parent that have had 8 children go through the public education system. 4 of my own, 2 adopted, and 2 stepchildren.
Did you say 8?
8.
Thank you.
Yes. It is my observation as seeing, we are discussing learning loss, and I believe that COVID kind of like shone on a light on what was happening with our school system. The school system was a little bit broken before COVID happened. So I only have one left in high school. She's a junior. She used to have an IP. Now she has a 504. And she's thriving in the school system. So I have some kids that went to Germana. Some took opportunity to utilize the Career and Tech Center. Yeah. Some of them, I have one at George Mason, I have one in Florida. But one of the things that I notice is in the matter that children are being taught, that I feel that there is that disconnect. So we went from project-based learning, which it is engaging skills. And through project-based learning, you're all able to make those differences, differentiating who can do something. What type of learner are you? Are you a visual learner? Yeah. Are you a hands-on learner? But out of the sudden, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, it started changing to social emotional learning, which is a good holistic approach, to teach children, but we concentrated too much on, and I don't mean to sound bad about it, we have concentrated too much on the emotional aspect that we totally forgot what is it that children are in school for. Which children are in school for to learn, to have those skills, so they can get on with life. They're going to learn life skills. They're going to learn a trade, or they're going to get an education into something further. I sit on the Germana board as well, on the board across the counties. And I believe that Germana is doing a wonderful job in trying to get our children to where they need to be, whether it's at the job market or whether it's to a 4-year education, because not everybody's success looks the same. But it is impossible sometimes for our children if they are not there with having project-based learning, having those critical and soft skills that we're teaching that in our schools instead of the social emotional learning, then it is not a good pairing. So can we go back to teaching project-based learning instead of social emotional learning in our K-12 schools? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, and I'm going to make a comment about that. But I'm going to wrap us all up because, one, you have been incredibly gracious with your time in the middle of a Thursday to come over and spend time in this fabulous facility with its great air conditioning. So thank you all. But Delegate Durant, would you like to make any closing comments?
That last comment, I think not everyone's success looks the same. And I think we're talking about these different pathways. I visited a facility up, it was Secretary Guerrero, Secretary of Education, had recommended going up to Loudoun academies. And Loudoun County has done this amazing, learning facility where they have different pathways for kids. And I mean, industries they're desperate for HVAC. We need mechanics. We need so many different pathways. And I want our communities to get to, we have the cookies and the balloons, and we're celebrating these kids, whatever pathway they're going to, whether it's directly into the military, not just the academic, not just the athletic, because they are so critically important and needed in our workforce right now. So if we're going to have a Virginia where we're not losing and we're competing with our neighboring states, we have to do a lot more to lean in to creating those different pathways. And I want to see it not just in different pockets, but throughout the Commonwealth. That's one of my greatest goals.
Thank you. Thank you. So just a first short comment. We have to prepare our kids to be able to do life. And I've expressed this frequently over the last number of years. I don't think our schools were doing that well. And therefore, we're working to change that. And we're working diligently at that. It is a partnership. And the partners at the table are parents, because you should have a say in what's taught in your schools. Full stop. Full stop. It's expressed through school boards. School boards, I've said many times, I think the most important job in America and in Virginia is being a school board member. Because at the heart of so many of the decisions that impact our kids are the decisions taken at school boards. And so I encourage you to be engaged in who's on your school board and who you're electing. And finally, at the state level, we get to set some standards, which we're actively doing. And as I mentioned earlier, the first standard set that by code came to us was history. I was pleased that it was history. I felt strongly that we needed to teach all of our history, the good and the bad. It's a tough process. I wanted to teach about our founding documents, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. I want students to understand what it means to be a citizen of the United States of America. I do want to make sure that everyone understands that our history is one that is filled with really dark times and filled with really great times. And our children should know this age appropriate. We can do, I think the history standards that we passed will be viewed as the very best history standards in the nation, because this is what I think we achieved. I think that the role of parents is critical. This is where I want to wrap up. I thank you all for being here. It means you care. It means that you think that parents have an important role in your children's lives because you took time today and expressed it by the most important thing you have, which is your time and your attention and your capabilities. We got started right away out of the box, and I was encouraged that on a bipartisan basis, one of the early bills, the very first bill that I really signed, enabled parents to decide whether their child wears a mask or not in school. And we empowered parents right out of the box. We've empowered parents, again, on a bipartisan basis, to enable parents to decide which curriculum components are sexually explicit and whether they want your child to be exposed to that or not. You decide. Parents, you have a role. Now, today, the curriculum, if there are sexually explicit materials, has to be disclosed to you, and you get to decide whether that is going to be part of your child's curriculum or not. You could request a replacement. I mean, let's be blunt. There's lots of places in America that's not the law. It is in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I encourage you to be engaged in what's involved in your child's curriculum. It's up to you to be engaged as a parent. I'm excited about the progress that we've made. I am very, very clear-eyed about the fact that the learning loss coming out of the pandemic has not gone away. The learning loss coming out of the pandemic is going to require us all to double down. We have a huge group of children who, in fact, are struggling, and we continue to go to work to support them. That's parents, teachers, schools, resources. It's lots, because we have a generation that, in fact, suffered mightily. They might have suffered, yes, from having a family member with COVID, but boy, did they suffer academically because of the decline in expectations going into it and the fact that schools were shut for such an extended period of time. And now coming out of it, it's coupled with a terrible, terrible mental health dilemma across the Commonwealth and the country. So we've got work to do. It's work that I pledge to do with you. It's work that Delegate Durant pledges to do with you. It's work that I know your local elected officials and school boards and friends, it's not a discussion today. I ask for God to bless you.